Hi, welcome to Artistic Spirit, your place for art, mental health, and spirituality. And I'm Katie Moran, an author, poet, advocate, creativity coach, and social entrepreneur. So today is a very special episode. I'm doing a solo podcast episode, and I'm going to talk about weaponizing self-belief. So I go over this in my coaching and programs, and I think it's probably the most transformational piece that I see people really go from a place of fear to a place of abundance. And I think it's so important for people to kind of like look at their fears and understand them and understand what they mean internally and externally, change their framework around it, and really put themselves out there, even in spite of that fear. So, in terms of weaponizing self belief, what does that mean? So, to start off with that, I think the most important thing to really recognize is that the major fears are actually parallel fears. So, self criticism is the internal expression of an external fear of other people criticizing you. And in turn, self rejection is an internalized fear of the external fear of other people rejecting you or your work or what you put out there. And this is probably the most important one, is that self-doubt is an internal fear and its external equivalent is hate. So when you self-doubt, you're really actually being a hater to yourself. And I think when you think about that, um, we really try and minimize this idea of self-doubt, and we think it's so normal, and we don't understand the frequency of it really comes from the same frequency of hate. um, so if you really feel in your heart that it's right to doubt yourself, like, you do have to let go of that, because it's something that is detrimental to your self-belief. Okay, now going through self-criticism and criticism. So this idea of making it irrelevant. So criticism is not something that should be relevant forever. It's not something that's permanent. Criticism is really something that we should be working on. So if we have self-criticism, how can we either gain a skill or confidence to overcome that criticism? And if there's criticism from outside people, we have to ask, is that valid? And how can you make it irrelevant by working on it, or overcoming it, or just discrediting it if it's something that isn't valid and it's coming from a place of hate. But I just want to be clear that hate is something different from criticism. So when people criticize us, usually it's not coming from a place of projection and it is feedback. Sometimes it could feel negative or give us a certain negative emotion, but at the end of the day, it usually is valid. But you really need to, in your mind, separate criticism from hate and know how to differentiate the two of them. So I always work through this with people about self-criticism and criticism. You need to see it as your passion, your work, your drive is all this fire. Just like think of a bonfire, and criticism or self criticism is the equivalent of someone writing a comment and putting it on a piece of paper and then throwing it into your fire. So sometimes we feel like we can dim our light because we receive criticism. But when you really think about what it's doing, is it's showing us how we can actually grow from it. So criticism isn't something to fear. Even self-criticism isn't something to fear. I mean, we do have a natural fear of it, so it's going to be there no matter what, but it's not something that's going to stop you. And it's important to kind of like understand these fears and where they come from and the rationality behind it, because that's how we overcome it. And if you think about our fire being fed every time someone puts criticism in it, then that's something that makes us more powerful. And it allows for our creative vision to grow, and it allows for our creative vision to have a strong foundation and have legs. And I love the quote, that if your idea can't withstand criticism, it's not a good idea. And that's just so important and powerful, because we have the power inside of us every day to overcome the fear of criticism and even welcome criticism and feedback. And I think it's so important that the role of critics in society is really to refine what we all put out there. So again, really in your mind, differentiate criticism, which can be healthy, with hate. So hate is something that is not valid. It's coming from someone's perspective of scarcity and their own fear, and they're projecting their fears onto you. And it's really not a situation that's fair, and no one deserves to receive hate. So again, really think of criticism as something that's valid. And reminder that when we have self-criticism, it could be valid for us. Maybe it's something we feel like we don't read enough. So we feel like we're going to use the wrong words when we're writing. That's something to be conscious of, because a very simple solution is just to read more, to gain more confidence and actually acquire the skills that will make that criticism or self-criticism irrelevant. So now moving on to self-rejection and rejection. So these are parallel fears. We self-reject because we think other people are going to reject us. And a lot of the times we take away someone's ability to have feel impacted by our work because we self-reject. So self-rejection is something that can stop us, and rejection is illusory that it can stop us. So rejection, it does not define you, and also it's not permanent. A lot of people say if you're receiving a no, you're going to the wrong person. So I really love that, because rejection is something that is so circumstantial, and it's it's not definitive. And I think really the danger of rejection and self-rejection is that we have such a large and immense, kind of like over all encompassing fear that other people will reject us, our work, or our ideas, so that we don't even put ourselves out there. So say you have 15 manuscripts that you've written, and you're not going to even query one or self-publish one because you're so afraid of what people will say. Getting back to that fear of criticism, but deeper into that, your fear is really that they'll reject it. So again, if criticism isn't something that can stop you, and even rejection is temporary, but self-rejection is something that can stop you. And you have to remember that even self-rejection is temporary. You should always be reevaluating how you feel about the things you put out, and your confidence level, and your ability to put yourself out there, and just your courage in general. So kind of like having check-ins with yourself so that you don't self-reject all the time, so that you don't have a manuscript you sit on for way too long. It's really possible for you to overcome all of these fears to put yourself out there. And it really starts with weaponizing self-belief. Now, the next one is self-doubt and its parallel hate. So I think this is just such a powerful perspective in terms of reframing self-doubt, because I think we really think self-doubt is this thing that doesn't have an impact on us. We think it's something that is very internal, but self-doubt has the same energetic frequency as hate. It's coming from the same place. Hate is something that other people project onto us, and it's not something that's always valid. And I would say it's never valid, because if it was valid, someone could just criticize you and it wouldn't be at the level of hate. So just a reminder that we are always stronger than hate. I recently have found so much empowerment from online hate, just because I used to be really upset by it, and I grew my Twitter following from 500 to 13.8 thousand, and it really opened me up to a lot of people's opinions. And there was someone who was harassing me on multiple platforms, and I really didn't know what to do. And I felt just this strong feelings of self-doubt from their hate. You know, hate causes self-doubt in us. And that's really where self-doubt comes from. And the fear that people will hate what we do or what we say or how we act. It's really just something that can hold us back. And again, self-doubt is not something that's going to define us. And we are stronger than the hate we project on ourselves and the hate we give to other people if we have really held in self-doubt for so long. So, a lot of the times, if we don't have self belief, it can cause us to have these negative feelings and projections onto other people. So, if you feel yourself hateful or jealous of other people, you need to ask yourself, how long have you been holding in your own self doubt? And sometimes we let go of our self belief and we hold on to self doubt. And this is something that can be really detrimental to our relationships, to our career, to our work, and how we present ourselves in the world. Because if we're not showing up in service to others, then we really aren't being our true and authentic selves. And it's so important for all of us to remember that we have the decision every day to overcome self doubt, to overcome hate, and to weaponize self belief. So, I'll get into a little bit more about weaponizing self belief. So, the idea of weaponizing self belief comes from self-development. So a lot of people in the self-development community really talk about this and weaponizing self-belief. So kind of like this idea that you can arm yourself and protect your energy from anything that can compromise it. So whether it be those fears that I mentioned, self-criticism, criticism, self-rejection, rejection, just the idea that we can defend ourselves with our belief. So, a lot of the times, if people have valid criticism, if we don't have self belief, we won't use it as feedback. We will use it as a reason to doubt ourselves. And really, this comes from a place of feeling like we're not enough, that grand fear of we're not enough. And if we're not enough, we won't be loved. Tony Robbins talks about that a lot. And it's so important to remember that we really can defend ourselves by believing in ourselves. And we don't have to meet hate with hate, which is something that I think a lot of online adversity can cause. So there's just this idea that we can face criticism, hate, and rejection without limiting our own self belief or stifling our self belief. And really, our best defense in a world that sometimes is harsh is that we still love ourselves and we still believe in ourselves and we still feel worthy and treat ourselves as being worthy of what we want and what we desire and what our dreams are. Because if we don't believe we are worthy of our dreams, they'll never turn into our goals. And that's how they come true, turning your dreams into goals. So, just a reminder for everyone to weaponize self belief and to really internalize the idea that our self belief is stronger than hate and all of our fears. So I just would like to encourage anyone who's been inspired by this to really fulfill your creative courage today. So for me, that's going to be doing a 30-day creative sprint. So I'm going to be posting more content, working on my manuscript, and really showing love to the places of my artistic work that I haven't recently. So really just putting in the work that will help me grow as a creative. So Sarah Habab and I will be hosting a 30-day creative sprint, and that's just for 30 days. You show up on our Discord server, which is a free server. I'll put the link in the show notes for Creativeville. And it's just a community where you can hold yourself accountable to creating every day. And it doesn't have to be something that's perfect. It doesn't have to be finished work every day. Just touching an art form for a minimum of 10 minutes a day. And really, if you're really pressed for time, it could be less than that. Just knowing that you're respecting yourself and your artistic vision and that you are believing in yourself. So if you want to practice this, join our 30-day creative sprint. Even if you hear this on day 16, come join. We run them a couple times throughout the year. So you can join the server and then come to the next one. Yeah, it's really about being in community, believing in yourself, and really overcoming the fear of putting yourself out there, because all of these things are really things that can be reframed and you can do it scared. So hoping for you today to find your creative courage and to really lean into that.